everyone, it's Brenda from Stamplicity with this week's video tutorial, and it's a new month, so we are focusing on a new product, and this month we are focusing on distress inks. So throughout the month I'm going to show you different ways on how to use distress inks. Now, distress inks have been around for a while. They're not a new product, but there's so many different things you can do with distress inks. I thought I would show you throughout the month. So before we get started, I just want to say distress inks are dye-based inks. What's unique about them compared to other dye-based inks is that they stay wet longer, so you can create some really beautiful blended backgrounds, and I'm going to show you that today. They're also acid-free and fade-resistant, and they also react with water, which can give you some really cool techniques. So let's get started on how to use them. The most common way people will use them is to edge die cut images or your mats. Usually you've seen this with brown ink, but for today's purpose I'm going to show you just this little heart that I had in my stash, and I'm going to use a red ink just to highlight the edges. You'll notice that I am using an ink blending tool. These are put out by Ranger, the same manufacturers of the distress inks, and they come in two shapes. This is the round one, and then this is the rectangle one. The rectangle one has been around for quite a while, and then they came out with the round one. In terms of preference, myself, I like the round one better. Throughout the years of using these ones and showing people different techniques, especially the blended background that I'm going to show you today, a lot of people will get hard edges because of the rectangle one. In the circle one, you tend not to get those hard edges, and hopefully you'll see what I mean in the next few minutes. So just sort of an overview of these ink blending tools. They have this little sponge. This is the blending sponge. And these are washable, so after you're done with them, you can go ahead and wash them with mild detergent or hand soap, some warm water, and they will come clean. Now you'll notice that mine does have a slight staining. When they are brand new, they will look like this, but this staining that's on there it won't come off. It's there. It's not going to contaminate your next project. And these just get fastened on by the Velcro that's on there. All right, so they're a really great tool to have. So the cool thing about distress inks is that they are made to have lots of wear and tear, and you can be actually quite rough with them. Throughout the many classes that I've taught and using distress inks, you know, when I tell people, you know, we're going to highlight the edges, they lightly tap. Okay, no, you can actually rub these pads and they can take it, so you can get lots of ink. So you can see I have lots of red ink on there. So this is just, you know, highlighting the edge of my heart. We do this with other inks as well, but we tend to do this with distress inks. And that's just one way of doing it. Another way of using distress inks, and this I've already got it done, but this is a little embossed piece. It's got a houndstooth pattern on there that I've run through the Big Shot machine, and then we've just taken a brown ink, distress ink, and the ink blending tool and lightly skimmed over it, and we've highlighted that pattern. Alright, so it's two ways that you can use the distress inks. But my favorite way of using distress inks is creating a blended background. So I'm going to do two to show you. The first one I'm going to do, I'm going to work with some really bright colors. So I have Wilted Violet, Salty Ocean, and Lucky Clover. So I'm going to use those three inks, and I'm going to create a blended background on this tag. And then I'm going to show you same technique but through a stencil. So let's get started. So I'm going to start with my ink blending tool, and I am putting a clean one on here. And I'm going to start with my lighter color. So out of the three colors here, my blue one's going to be the lightest. And again, I'm really going to rub some color on there. So you can see that I've got quite a lot of ink on there. All right, so now I'm just going to start in a rotating motion, and I'm going to start off of my tag. You can see I'm starting on my craft sheet, and you're going to go ahead and just randomly apply that blue ink. Now, depending on how hard or pressure that you apply will determine how dark the color goes on. So some people have a very light touch. I tend to have more of more of a harder touch. So the colors are very bold. All right, so there's my first color I'm going to put on. All right, very quick and easy. I'm going to go into my next color, which is the Lucky Clover. You'll notice I am not changing my ink blending tool. It's not going to contaminate your ink, but I'm going to go ahead and apply that green. All right, so you can see there's green on there now. And again, I'm going to now just off the page start, and I'm going to go and fill in some of those empty spots, but still blending into that blue. And you'll see that they're blending beautifully together. All right, so you can just build up your colors. Okay, there's our second color. Going to add to our third color now. So here I'm going to use Wilted Violet. Again, I'm not cleaning off my ink blending tool, just picking up that ink, and now I'm going to fill in these empty spots with that purple. All right, blending those colors as I go. So we're getting those blue tones, we're still getting the green tones, and we're getting some purple tones, and then we're getting some tones in between from them blending. All right, so that is now completed. All right, you can see how beautifully blended it is. So a couple of different other techniques that you can do on here is, like I said, it's reactive with water. So if we wanted to have some water droplets on here to give it an aged look, I would say, you can go ahead, and this is the real technique way of doing it. You're going to take your water bottle. You are going to go ahead and spray water until you have a puddle in the bottom, and then just kind of dab it, sprinkle it on. All right, so you can see that the water droplets on there. I got quite a lot on there. You're going to go ahead and let that water just sit on there for a few seconds. Now I'm not sure if the camera's picking up. Oh yeah, it is. But you can see that you're getting these water droplets. It's actually lightening up that ink, which is very cool. All right, like I said, these are reactive with water. So now I'm just going to take a roll of paper towels, and I'm going to roll that over top. And as you can see, now we've got these great water droplets on there. And that's going to dry that way. So I'm just going to leave that to dry, and then I'm going to come back to that one, and we're going to finish it up with a stamp over top. Okay, so I'm going to let that one to dry. Just going to clean off my craft mat here with all the excess water. And I'm going to show you another blended technique using a stencil. Now, the first one I used just a manila tag that's put out by Ranger. The inks really adhere to the manila tag very nicely and blend nicely together. This is regular white cardstock, and I'm going to show you that you can do the same thing with it. So with this here, I'm going to use a stencil, and I'm going to go ahead and attach this stencil in the middle of my card. The stencil is a Dina Walkley stencil put out by Ranger. And I'm using Post-it tape. I really like Post-it tape to hold down my stencils rather than the painter's tape because it's really low tack and it never leaves a residue, and I have no problem taking it off when I'm done. So I'm just going to tape that on. And again, I'm going to do the same thing, but this time we're working through a stencil. So I'm going to work with the orange, yellow, and red palette, starting with my lighter color. I'm going to go ahead and start with the yellow, and this time I'm going to just start on the top of my stencil, and just round motions I'm going to go ahead and just do the top part through the stencil. Okay, so now we have that yellow just through the top bit. Now I'm going to go into my secondary color, which is the orange. I'm going to pick up some orange, all right, and now I'm going to go ahead in the middle, just slightly blending over top of that yellow. So we're going to do almost a gradation of color here. All right, so we're bringing that orange down and just blending a little bit on top of that yellow. Now for our third color, which is Festive Berries. I'm going to pick up some of that red. And now I'm going to go to the bottom of the stencil, and we're going to slightly overlap onto that orange so we get some of that blended look. All right, So that's completed. Now I'm going to take this off, and you can see we have this beautiful gradation of color. All right, started from the yellow and now it's working into the orange and then into the red. Okay, so that's through a stencil. That's going to be a very cool background for a card front that we're going to use for our sample here at the store. So they're quick and easy. So I'm going to go back to my tag that I originally had. Actually, I'm going to take a heat gun to that because it's still not dry. I went a little crazy with the water. So just mind the noise here. All right, there we go. So you can see as it dries, it even gets lighter. I do have some red speckles in there, and that's because I didn't use clean paper towels. Okay, so when I rolled over top of this, some of the dye inks, and these are from the Dilutions spray inks, they were transferred over to my tag, which is, you know, a great look. I think it's pretty cool the way it looks, and I got those red speckles on there. So no mistakes, just some great oopsies. But kind of a cool effect. Okay, so now I'm going to take a stamp. I have this stamp from Stampendous, and I'm going to use black archival ink. And I'm going to go ahead and stamp this bold leafy image onto my tag. And we'll do one near the top. All right, so there we go. You know, you pretend this is a card front, and you know, we could put a little verse on there with sympathy. Would be a great looking card. To each their own, you know, you can have some fun with this. So there you go, blended backgrounds and with distress inks through a stencil and just as a background with some water droplets. Okay, so that's it for today, and we'll see you next week with some more distress ink tutorials.